Pucks with Haggs
is brought to you by Prize Picks.
Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Welcome in, everybody. This is the 242nd episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns during the week for the Boston Sports Journal and do a weekly Q&A with subscribers. So check out bostonsportsjournal.com to get all of that stuff and get some great content on all of the four major pro sports in Boston. With me today, I have longtime friend and colleague Mark Divver from the New England Hockey Journal. He is also some random dude out in New England, and you can find all of his stuff out in at rinksiderhodeisland.com on the Providence Bruins. It's a must-read website if you want to get updates on the Providence Bruins and what's going on with the prospects down there. Mark, how's it going, my friend?
Very good, Joe. Glad to be with you.
Glad to have you with me today. Haven't talked to you in a bit. Just give us a quick update, I guess, on what's happening down in Providence and how things have been going down there. I know there's obviously a big influx of those guys with Boston now as the injury bug hits. So what's happening down in Providence?
Yeah, it's a depleted team at this point, going into tonight's game. And they have two games this weekend, tonight and tomorrow night, both at home. I mean, this is what the American League is here for, right?
Yep.
So it happens from time to time every year. You get a stretch where there's a bunch of injuries up top, and you lose your top players for at least a while. In this case, I'm curious to see how long some of these guys are up there, whether some of them can grab onto full-time NHL jobs and stay, and what the repercussions would be down here. But I mean, between the call-ups and an injury or two, Providence is really depleted personnel-wise at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the lot in life for an AHL team when things like this happen, and it makes it challenging for Ryan Muginel and his staff. There's no question about that. Trying to figure out a way to be competitive and win hockey games and continue to push forward with what they're doing. When all of a sudden you're losing players and you're having sort of guys you don't really know that much about coming in and replacing them in the lineup, or guys that were down on the coast or whatever, wherever they come from, that are coming in and replacing the guys that were called up. Interesting, to sort of look at the guys that have been called up, how they've performed, what's happened with a lot of different players. I would say, based on what I've seen, Alex Steeves has a pretty decent chance of turning into something, developing into something where they're going to find a use for him at the NHL level on that roster. Just based on what he's done, based on that he was called up so early, based on what they used him for in training camp and how they utilized him and how they saw that he was more than just a scorer in the AHL. He was a guy that can help them in the bottom six as well. And just watching the way he plays at the NHL level, super smart player, makes really good decisions, really responsible, hustles on the back check, plays 200 feet. We'll make a mistake every once in a while, but that's okay. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish at the same level in the NHL level that he did in the AHL level, finish off plays and play top six and be as effective at the NHL level as he was in the AHL. I think some of that may also come with confidence and getting comfortable there and depending on who he's playing with. But it feels to me like watching him play in Boston, he may be able to stick for a while. And maybe that's some of what factored into them deciding to send Johnny Beecher down and put him on waivers, knowing that they might risk losing him. And the other guy's Aspero. I think Jonathan Aspero is another guy that I think has really done well and acquitted himself well up there and could turn into something more Once Jordan Harris comes back and if McAvoy comes back, that may change. But like he may be up there for a while now with all the injuries that they're having, and the the Providence Bruins will have to figure out something else on the back end long term without him. But those seem to be like the two guys that stick out to me that may end up graduating into like some kind of niche at the NHL level.
Yeah, Aspero, really wasn't down here very long. So I don't didn't have much of a read on his game when he went up. But yeah, he's held his own. He's held his own. He needs to continue to to do that. I think he's a 6 or a 7 defenseman.
Yep.
And he's done fine so far. Steve's, I've been impressed with his physicality. I didn't.
Yep.
I've seen him in the American League, and I don't recall that being really much a part of his game. But he's been physical. I mean, he's not he's not blowing people up, but he finishes his checks. He doesn't hesitate. He's been good that way, and I think the scoring part. I when a guy like him first goes up, I think you can kind of see that his when he goes to shoot the puck and he gets opportunities, he's just the slightest little bit slow to get the shot off. Whereas down here, he buries that. Up there, he's got to get it off right away, and just waiting just a little, just for a split second to settle the puck or whatever doesn't work. So, but I think the all-around game for him, as you said, he backchecks hard. I think he stands a chance of staying. The other guys, we really haven't seen enough of them up top to say whether they stand a good chance or not of staying up there.
Yeah. Poor Blumel. I think he got screwed out of a goal the other night. He really kind of deserved to get that one, and there would have been a nice feather in his cap to get that.
Yeah.
At that particular moment, sort of a confidence booster. I'm sure they still, he got pats on the back from everybody for going hard to the net and sort of finishing off that play. But yeah, I agree with you as far as like, that Riley Tufte, Blumel, those guys. It feels like to me, Riley Tufte's definitely a guy that's more of a stopgap. Like he's up there for injuries. He'll be sent back to Providence when things sort of even out. But I think it's also a reflection of like how good a pro he's been and how well he's played in Providence, that he was the guy that was picked, or one of them, to go up in that situation and play. He did get a goal at the end of that first game that he played, even though it was a rough game for the Bruins. And, I think he's been a little better this year than he was at times last year when he got NHL calls, and you didn't really notice him much on the ice and what he was doing. I felt like he was more noticeable in that game. And like Blumel's a guy, I'm sure he's going to get calls at times this year when they have injuries, top 6 wise, because they kind of view him as a legit like top 6 guy that can fill in. But just fill me in, I guess, on how these guys and everybody else has looked in Providence over the first few weeks, month of the season. They obviously got off to a really hard start. A lot of guys were playing really well. How have things looked as they've kind of settled in down there as the season, as they're getting into the teeth of the season now?
Well, the thing that I think really separates, puts Providence ahead of their competitors down here is the goaltending has been unbelievable. Michael DiPietro was the best goalie in the league last year, and he hasn't taken a backward step this year so far. And the new guy, Simone Zajic, out of nowhere, really, has been right there with DiPietro.
You looked really good in training camp when he played.
He did. Those two guys have been lights out, and covering up for mistakes when there are mistakes in coverage and so forth. They're right there to stop the puck. So those two guys have been tremendous so far. Patrick Brown has been Patrick Brown. Fans, the prospect truthers don't want to hear it, but
The prospect truth.
this guy is such a pro and such a standout at the American League level. I get it. I get it. He's getting up there in age. He's not as fast as he used to be. I get that whole thing. But man,
Yep.
What a pro. What a pro.
Yep.
He does everything hard, it's almost a cliche in the American League is he's a guy who shows the young guys, this is what a pro hockey player looks like. This is how you prepare. This is how you conduct yourself. I mean, he's an invaluable player down here. And I get it. You want to develop the young guys like Patra and Merkelhoff, maybe. Well, maybe not Merck so much now, but Patra. But what a role model for those guys that they have in Patrick Brown. Tufty was tremendous. As a pro, like you touched on, the way he conducts himself day to day is a good example for the younger guys. And I've gotten some funny looks when I've brought this up a couple of times. He's the same age, Riley Tufte is. He's the same age as Justin Brazeau. And he's roughly the same size. So it took Justin Brazeau to age 26 or 27, whatever he is now, for him to break through. Yep. So before you write off Riley Tufte, consider that. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that he can make the next step now. I'm not predicting it.
Yep.
I didn't predict Brazeau to make it. If you would ask me 2 years ago, I would have said, no, he's an American League guy. And now look at him.
Yeah.
But when you look at some of the other guys, Merkelhoff has been playing strictly wing this year, no center at all. He's been on the wing. I mean, he's such a good player. I get it. It's the American League. It's not the National League. And he's I don't know if he's struggled in the NHL when he's gotten his limited opportunity, but he hasn't really broken through for sure. I don't think that's no secret. So if he were to get a shot up top again, he'd have to do something. It's time to break through. Patra's been fine. He hasn't been a standout, I wouldn't say, but he certainly hasn't been bad. The puck, he hasn't had a lot of puck luck. I think he only has one goal. But the pace of his game, is faster than it's been, in his pro career so far. So
that's good. That's a good.
That's a start. That's a start for him as far as if and when he gets another NHL opportunity, and he will. There's no question about that. He's got to maintain that and continue to push the pace more than he has in his previous time in the NHL. I don't even know if I should bring up Fabian Lysell. I mean,
speaking of the prospect truthers,
yeah. I mean, he's hurt right now. This is an ideal time for somebody like him to maybe get a chance if the opportunity came up. But he's hurt.
Yep.
So what do you can't expect an injured player to come up and do anything. But I mean, he sat out a couple of games recently. He was a healthy scratch. So I mean, that kind of says it, doesn't it? He's played fine. Absolutely. He's played fine at times, but they've called up 5 guys ahead of him. So there it is. Frederick Brunet's been good. He's coming along. He's not ready, in my opinion, to be a to go up and fill a role up top. But he's getting there. He's still very young. Who else? Who am I leaving out?
I think that's pretty much everybody. I think the rest of them are up at the NHL level. I mean, there's the Harvard kid.
Farinacci.
Donato's nephew.
Yep.
Yep.
He's been good.
How's he been?
Good. He is what he is. He's a solid all-around center iceman. I don't know that he has the foot speed to be an NHL guy, but they could certainly call him up and play him. If they needed to at center. He does a lot of things well.
The Merkulov one is interesting to me if he comes back up and he plays wing, especially after getting like a lot of experience in the A playing wing, because it felt like to me a lot of times when he came up, he was definitely preoccupied. And I'm sure this is Steve's to a degree has been doing the same thing. He's preoccupied with like details, playing defense, like doing all the other stuff away from the puck that you're expected to do as a center that can sometimes take away from your ability to create offense and sort of push the offense. So I think obviously moving him to wing would free him up a little bit to worry about that stuff less. We saw a guy in Casey Middlestat who I think was having a hard time because he was doing the same thing. And when they put him on wing, it seemed like he was much more free to just create offensively and to look to make plays instead of worrying about the other stuff that you have to worry about when you're playing center. So, it would be interesting, I think, for him to get another shot. And I would like to see him, honestly, get another shot because he's been, to your point, so good at the AHL level. And he's been a guy that's really been able to create down there. Why not give him at least one more look before, it becomes a thing where you've got to trade him or he wants to leave or he signs somewhere else at the end of the year or whatever happens. Clearly, if he doesn't get a few more chances in the NHL with Boston, he's going to end up somewhere else soon.
Yeah, and I think there's some similarity to Blumel and maybe Tufty too, but no, I'm sorry, Blumel and Steves. They were all-stars in the American League last year, and
yeah,
Merck is right there as far as all-star status. He hasn't been picked yet, but I mean he's right there with those guys in terms of his standing in the league. So I mean, why wouldn't you give a guy like that another look, and see if maybe this time, maybe at wing, he can break through. He's not the physical guy that like Steves has been, but boy, he made a back check last Sunday, I think it was, that I was like, wait a minute, was that Merck? I mean, he just flew back and broke up a play. And I mean, when he first got here a couple of years ago, that never would have happened. So he's kind of embraced the wing thing, and he's thriving over there. So, I mean, like I said, why not give a guy like that another look? There's got to be the opportunity. Somebody's probably got to get hurt up there, but I don't see what you have to lose.
Yeah, no, given the compacted schedule in an Olympic year, there is a lot of injuries at the NHL level, not only for the Bruins, but for a lot of other teams as well. And you kind of expected that to happen when they're basically playing every other day, right now, and have been for the entire season. So it's not really surprising. There's been the injuries that have happened, and I'm sure there's going to be even more, just given kind of the gauntlet that they're playing in to try to squeeze the Olympics in as well. Speaking of the Bruins and speaking of the team up in Boston, just your thought. I haven't talked to you in a while, so your thoughts on what we've seen to this point, and them being in a top 3 spot in the Atlantic Division, and really seemingly, playing good hockey under Marco Sturm and the new coaching staff. And the power play has been really good under Steve Spott. Like, I give him a lot of credit for what's going on with that power play, because I've been super impressed by the power play. And just you can tell it's really well coached with the varying entries, the different things, the plays that they're running on a nightly basis where they're changing things up and doing things differently, and sort of either doing what's unexpected given the scouting reports, or seeing something on the other team's penalty kill that they can attack. But like they've gotten enough offense. They've won even though the defense has really struggled. The 6-game losing streak, a lot of that I think comes down to them still having a hard time at the beginning with the man-to-man hybrid that they're running. And it seems like now they're much more well-versed in it. You're not seeing the coverage breakdowns and the big mistakes that you were seeing there. But like, they look to me like, and obviously the injuries could like even this out a lot, but they've looked in the first couple of months like a playoff team. They are going to be in a playoff spot come U.S. Thanksgiving. Like, your thoughts on just where this team is right now and if they've surprised you to any degree with what we've seen?
They have surprised me, definitely. I didn't make any preseason predictions, but if I had, I would have said they're going to be right on the cusp of the playoffs, maybe, and that if they could hang in, into the new year and maybe to the Olympic break, then that to me would be a successful year. But I think, right now they're on track, or at least until the injuries hit, they were on track to be better than that. And
yep,
I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised. I wasn't a rah-rah Marco guy when they hired him. I was kind of lukewarm on it. But credit to him. Every indication is he's doing it his way. And so far, there were some blips there at the beginning where, maybe he questioned whether there was buy-in from everybody. But I think, the last little while there has been buy-in, and they're embracing the system and the way he wants them to play. And the injuries though could really derail this. It being somewhat of a pessimist and a curmudgeon this week after that game the other night, I said to myself, geez, wouldn't it really suck if that Montreal win was the high point of the season? That was as good as it got this year. I hope that's not true. I hope that's not true. But man, overcoming some of these hurdles injury-wise is going to be tough, especially Charlie. I mean, he was playing great hockey when that happened, and it's going to be a while before it comes back. And when he does come back, what's he going to look like at that point? Having missed all that time and having suffered, we don't know exactly what the injury is at this point, but man, it was whatever it was bad. It was bad. Yep. So, that's something you got to hope for the best for him in dealing with that.
100%. Like I was getting people in my Twitter, like sending messages basically like, you better be in the lineup like this day or whatever. And it's like, dude, like, why don't you take an NHL slap shot in the mouth and like, tell me like, okay, I'm going to suit up and I'll be in there 2 days later. Like, are you kidding me? Like when I saw that, as soon as I saw that, you knew it was serious. You knew it was bad. You knew it was something that was going to be significant for him. And like, it wasn't surprising when you heard facial surgery. I'm sure there was plenty of dental stuff going on there as well. Yep. And that's like, that is the sort of like the side of the NHL that like the fans and I think a lot of other people don't realize is some of the stuff that these guys deal with and some of the stuff that they have to, address and move on from when they get a catastrophic injury like this. That's, there's a long recovery from both psychologically and mentally as well as physically. And, that is a tough one. And you're right. He was playing really good hockey. They were in a good place as a team. And like, all it takes is one deflected puck like that. And it really starts to change things for a while. And they're going to be in a, and now there's going to be a lot more burden on a guy like Hampus Lindholm, who is just coming back from missing almost all of last season with an injury. And there's going to be even more burden on him and Zadorov moving forward. Well,
and I think when Charlie comes back, he's going to have to, what do I know? But I'm guessing he's going to have to wear facial protection, maybe for the rest of the season. You know, how can you? You have to. You have to.
Yep.
You know, I saw some fool on Twitter yesterday comparing, invoking Zdeno Chara playing Game 7 in 2019, and it's like, people, come on.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
let the guy get better, and he'll be back when he's ready.
I would like to see those kind of people take a 90-mile-an-hour slap shot in the face and see if they're ready to come back in a day or two, because they wouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Very easy to say that when you weren't the one on the receiving end of something like that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like I was, this isn't even close, but I was on the bench like a month or two ago, and this is a peewee game, and took, like, the kid slapped it, and he was trying to clear it high glass to go into the zone, and I was working the forward door, and it ended up hitting me in, like, the side of the head, and, like, I thought he friggin' broke my jaw, even though it was a 12-year-old kid. He's got a pretty heavy shot. I ended up having a black eye for 2 weeks. Like, it hit me here, and it traveled over to here, and it was, like, swollen and had a black eye. Like, and it hurt for a while. Like, I can't even imagine what it feels like. And all those guys are tough to have that particular thing happen to you, where it starts breaking bones in your face, and you're eating through a straw. And some people, some social media tough guys are like, suck it up and get back in there like 2 days later. It's like, no, that is not going to happen. Like, that's just crazy and ridiculous for you to even think that. And it's really easy to say that when you're, like, sitting at a keyboard instead of actually, like, going out there and doing it. And also trying to compare yourself to, like, one of the toughest guys of all time in Zdeno Chara as well.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it blows my mind sometimes what the that's it. I will call them injury truthers instead of prospect truthers are out there saying in these situations. All right, let's take a break real quick. We're going to come back, but let's talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players, it could be pros or sharks. You simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and it's super simple. Prize Picks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count as a loss. You can earn up to 2,000 times your money on Prize Picks. They also offer Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Our picks for this week are Alex DeBrincat, less than 3.5 shots on net, Dylan Larkin, more than 3.5 shots on goal, and Connor Bedard, more than 0.5 goals. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Let's also let you know that you are listening to the Pucks with Haggs podcast on the CLNS network. We ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Celtics All Access on CLNS, the NBA History Channel, Patriots Press Pass, and Bruins Ringside YouTube channels as well. Please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. Anybody in Boston, Mark, with the Bruins that you've been particularly surprised about in the early going, or something that you felt like was notable that you've seen so far in the early going with this team?
There was a play was it the Ottawa game? One of the Ottawa games where Jeannot got the puck to Kastelik, who made a beautiful pass across to Pasta, who scored.
Yep.
And this was on the
power play.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I remember thinking to myself, wow, if you told me in the summer that Tanner Jeannot and David Pastrnak are even going to be on the ice on a power play at the same time, I would have said, nah, that's not going to happen. I like Tanner Jeannot. I've liked him.
Yep.
I don't care about the money. I think the money is fine. I
Yep.
just want him for what he does. He he bullied Montreal's big tough guy last Saturday night. And the reason why he doesn't have a lot of fights is because no one wants to fight him.
Yep.
He's not taking fights against every Tom, Dick, and Harry. He can pick and choose the real tough guys. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's been good. Not only the fighting part, the hockey playing part has been good. It's been fine.
Yep.
Yep. I've liked Sean Corrali. I mean, he does what he does. He's not going to put up a lot of goals or a lot of points, but his details are good, and that's why he's here and why he's still in the league at this point. So I like him. Credit to Mason Lowry for overcoming that the setback that he had and missing those games, being a healthy scratch. He's been better, not perfect,
Yep.
but better. There was a shift the other night where he was like creating chances at both ends, but there's gonna be times like that. That's kind of who he is, but minimizing those mistakes. He's done that, and he's been better. He's going to have to continue to work on it, obviously. But I've been impressed that he's been willing to change his game in order to get in the lineup and stay in the lineup.
And not be a liability.
Not be a
somebody
liability.
that you're looking at and say, like, this is why they're losing games because you're just not strong enough on his stick in the D zone in certain situations where it was turning into easy goals for the other team. Like he stopped that. He's managed to avoid those kind of situations, which is like the whole key. As long as you can avoid those ones, the really awful ones that are turning into easy goals, like, yeah, you're going to have chances where things are going to break down or you're going to have mistakes because you're not really a defensive defenseman per se. But like, as long as that's what's going on, the run of the mill stuff, like that's okay. You just can't have plays like that D zone faceoff where the guy just takes the puck off his stick and net and scores. Like that just can't happen. Jeannot, I completely 100% agree with you. Exactly as advertised, been really good. We'll handle the loose pucks and the garbage stuff in front of the net like as a big man should, like his kind of game where he can pop in rebounds and be a net front presence. Has enough skill to play with guys where he can help create and help the offense flow. And for me, what's been extremely notable is the amount of guys after he fights somebody that go over the penalty box and give him a fist pound and want to say thanks and like appreciate what he's doing and understand his importance on the team and what having a guy like that does as far as adding courage and adding fearlessness to everybody else in that lineup. Like that stuff is so appreciated by the other players on the team, and you can see it, on the ice, and it's very notable when it happens, and you can see the value that everybody else places in a guy like that in the role that he plays.
No question about it. No question about it.
That is worth the salary cap hit, and that is worth what's going to become in a couple of years a pittance on the salary cap because it's going up by so much. Like the hue and cry, and this was definitely a prospect truther kind of like thing where people were rolling their eyes about this and complaining about this and complaining about his contract. Those are the people that for me truly don't have an understanding of what is going on at the NHL level, what ultimately wins in the playoffs, and what you need in order to have a winning environment and to protect like your skill players, and to not have them taking shots all over the place from guys on the other team. Like all that stuff goes into a guy like Jeannot and his value on the team.
No question about it. No question about it. I mean, I think we've seen, since Chara left and, in the years since then, we've seen Bruins teams get pushed around and bullied.
Yep.
Florida certainly has done it on a regular basis. That's not going to happen this year.
Nope.
Whether the Bruins will win the games in the end, in those situations, hey, who can say? But they're going to go down fighting, and they're not going to be pushed around or bullied or by anybody. I think this year they're the ones that are going to be doing the bullying. That certainly happened in Montreal, without question.
Yep.
And another guy I'll just mention briefly that's one of my favorites is Veal. I mean, there's no secret. There's no secret to what he's doing out there. But what did he have? 6 or 7 shots the other night, and he's in front of the net. He's going to the dirty areas. He doesn't have any points. He's not going to be a points guy, but he's another one who you see him in a scrum, and you see guys on the other team see him, and they turn away. They're like,
"Yep,
I'm good." I'm.
Yep.
They're staying out of that. And you can complain that he's not a full-time player. He takes up a roster spot. Well, I say you keep a guy like that, and I've heard that he's very popular with in the room. As those guys often are.
Yep.
Another guy I want to mention as a surprise, and I'm taking the L on this one, is Husnudinov, because the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I was like, this guy can't play. Yeah, he can skate like the wind, but nothing happens. But then, he's played his way into a role where obviously he's high in the lineup, and he's making plays, and he's productive. And I was wrong, dead wrong about him. He's been tremendous. Somebody
he has been.
Somebody in the Bruins hierarchy identified him as a guy that there was more there than there appeared to be. And we're seeing that happen right before our eyes now.
Yeah, and there's a long list now of guys like that the Bruins NHL scouting staff and the management and their entire front office, they're really good at identifying underutilized talents on other teams that come here and that they can use and put into a role and come back and play. You mentioned Brazeau. He was one of those guys. Who's Nadinov? Morgan Geekie is the absolute best example of that.
Unbelievable.
There is Aspero is another guy, very useful player that they've been able to put in, and he's been good. Weatherspoon was a guy like that too when he was here. Like, they find guys like that and do a really good job of putting them in positions here where they can eventually carve out an NHL role for themselves. And that's like, there's definitely stuff you can criticize the Bruins for. There are strengths and weaknesses to every GM and every organization. There is zero question on my mind that one of their huge strengths is identifying talent on other NHL teams, bringing them here, and then getting success out of them. Kostelic, I think, is another guy that's been really good since he got here. And I think people were kind of like, who is this guy? When he was involved in the Olmark trade. But I think he's been a really a plus player for them, and he's really helped them. And these are guys that help them win hockey games. All right, we're going to get Cap77 is a guy. We always do the Q&A over at Boston Sports Journal. He does some really good questions, and it's always like a multi-pronged question email. He sent an email with like 5 or 6 questions, so we're going to go through these really quick, Mark, from Cap77. First one, did you anticipate the Bruins waiving Beecher, and did you expect him to get claimed? I'll answer this quickly first. I did anticipate them waiving him, especially like we talked about with the way that Steve's played. It felt like other guys were sort of replacing him in the NHL lineup. Did I expect him to get claimed? I didn't. But Calgary is a team that is just woebegone right now, and they need all the help they can get, especially at center. So I guess I shouldn't be that surprised that he was claimed. And he's got a skill to be able to kill penalties and win faceoffs. Those are two things he can do, if that's all you're looking for out of your fourth line center. They're and he's a former first round pick that I'm sure, a la Oliver Wahlstrom, other teams are going to think they can get something out of him or bring out that talent out of him that I'm really not sure is there. But your thoughts on the Beecher waiving and him getting claimed by Calgary?
Yeah, my thing with him is, or with guys in that situation, I think teams look at a guy like him with his size and his, the one skill that stands out, which is his skating, and they think,
Yep.
hey, we can fix this guy. We can fix him.
Yeah.
You know. Uh,
Yep.
so I expected him to be claimed because of that reason. You just don't see guys that can skate like that are 6'3", all that often. And, there's a lot more to the game than that, which is what unfolded over the years for him here. But I thought it was, I take my hat off to Marco Sturm for the blunt comments that he made, when Beecher was kind of going out the door, about his effort, and he thought he'd be better.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
telling it like it is, right? I mean,
Yep.
I just think after as long as he's been here, he leaves you always wanting more, or if he could do this, if he could do that, why can't he score on a breakaway? You just at some point you just got to say, okay, we've done all we could, and he gets a fresh start someplace else, and good luck to him. I hope it works out for him there. But it was time. It was time for him to go, and now he gets that chance with Calgary.
Yep. And he was a guy that you'd always see players kind of roll their eyes about stuff he was doing in practice, that he was definitely not one of the hardest workers, or we would, goof sometimes in practice a little bit. And, was not a guy that was, that was bringing it at like most guys in his position you would expect, the effort and the attention to detail and all the different stuff that's going on. I don't know that it was consistently there like it is with a lot of other guys in that same kind of position. And some of it may go down right back to him being a former first round pick and kind of feeling like, and him being in the U.S. National Development Program and having the resume that he has, where maybe he didn't feel like he had to work as hard as some other people did just because of the background that he has. And maybe a change in scenery will change that perspective. Who knows? But yeah, I one of the reasons I felt like Marco Sturm was going to be successful with the Bruins, knowing him like I did, was because he was going to be blunt like that, because he's going to hold guys accountable, because he is not going to be afraid to pull punches, or he's not going to pull punches. And I think this Bruins team needed a little bit of that. They really did.
No question.
I think Jim Montgomery was way too much on the other side of not calling guys out, of pulling his punches, of not being of almost insulting the intelligence of the media and the fans with some of the stuff that he would say and kind of gloss over and not address it front on. And I just felt like that was never going to fly here, and it wasn't a good fit for the team. And I think Marco Sturm is the opposite in so many ways, where it is going to be a good fit for the team. And you also, the one thing I really liked about Jim Montgomery is he's a good offensive mind. I think he's a smart coach as far as trying to get offense out of a team and being able to coach skilled players. Steve Spott is a really good coach in that vein too. So you have Marco Sturm and what he brings. And you also have an assistant coach that I think can bring some of the stuff that Jim Montgomery, what his strengths were, what he was supposed to bring to the table. So that's why I kind of felt like it was going to be a good situation for the Bruins. And it's only been 2 months, but I think it's definitely played out that way. And, what you're talking about with the Beecher comments is just an absolute great example of that.
Well, he's Marco's got the hammer. He's got it,
Yep.
and he's using it. And
Yep.
One thing that I'm not saying this is a factor, but he's on fire. When they lost 6 in a row, there were nutcases saying, it's the coach. He's he doesn't have the room, or whatever, the stupid things that people come up with. But he's unfireable right now. Okay, he can't be fired. The Bruins, the front office can't pull the plug on him at this point and say, geez, you know what? We made the wrong pick. We got to bring in the next guy. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. And so Marco's doing it his way. And, you hope that a year from now, 2 years from now, where he's into this a little bit, that he's still doing it that way rather than
Yep.
softening the sharp edges, which happens sometimes over time. You hope he
Yep.
continues to be a guy who just tells it like it is, and not only to the media, but to his players too. That's what you hope for.
Yep, absolutely. And only time will tell that. All right, number 2. When the Bees quickly fell behind 2-0 in Anaheim, I was fully confident in them fighting back, such as the team this season. How is the coaching staff tackling the issue of late dropped points like last night or the other night in Anaheim, which could haunt this team in April? I think it's a really good question. I think I counted 5 one-goal losses now after that game in Anaheim the other night. And if you put 5 points on the board, just the 5 loser overtime points where they lost in regulation in those games, you're talking about them being in first place very comfortably in the Atlantic Division, them having the second most points in the entire NHL. And I do think those are going to become significant if you can't turn some of these regulation 1-goal losses into overtime shootout losses where you at least get the point. Forget about the 2 points winning the game. Just getting it to overtime and getting that 1 point that you need to tack on your total. I don't know that there's anything they can do any differently as far as coaching it or like an adjustment they can make. I did think it was interesting the other night, Zadorov afterwards talking about playing like a man and just like not panicking with the puck and, not sort of like shrinking from the moment in those situations, which may be happening a bit. It was good that he said that and recognized it. And I think that's kind of what needs to change is what I think we said we need to mature a little bit as a team. And I do think that's something that needs to happen.
To me, that problem is there's only so much the coaches can do. It's up to the players there and the leadership. And by saying those things, Zadorov, clearly is showing that he's one of the leaders. But when you're in those situations or those situations come up, it's awareness on the part of the players that, okay, we're in this, we're up by a goal with 3 minutes left. Keep playing, keep pushing forward. Don't fall back into a shell. Things like that. It's up to the players to get that job done as opposed to the coach. The coaches have to remind them, but it's the leadership too that needs to tackle that and grab the bull by the horns. And when Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron were around, that they were all over that. It would still happen from time to time, as it will, but they were all over it. And this leadership group, maybe still growing into it a little bit, that role. So it was, like you said, it was good to hear Zadorov mention that the other night, and that's going to be a key thing going forward is stamping out those kind of, letting the lead get away. You've got to nip that in the bud.
Yep, and I've heard, by the way, Zadorov has been very good on the bench and in the room as far as like being a positive. Relaying that message, but doing it in a positive way to try to get them, to sort of meet the moment and doing it in a way that's from a good leadership place. And it's probably one of the reasons he ended up with a letter on his sweater, when McAvoy went out with the injury, and that he was chosen to be a guy because of the leadership he's shown this year. And I think he's been a really good player too. Like, another one in the VL, Jeannot, like the pantheon of like tough guys that are on this team that set a tone of intimidation and physicality and just like, dare you to step up to them. Like he is one of those guys to the nth degree. And like, and I was going to say this earlier when we were talking about this, the last time the Bruins won a cup, half their team could fight. Half the guys on that team could fight, if not more. 3/4 of the team on that guys on that team could fight, and we're pretty tough. And I think we're seeing that a little bit with this team this year. Is there are guys like that on this team, a lot of them that you don't want to mess with, and I think that's a good sign for this team and where they're headed this season.
No question about it, and I think you mentioned the players going over to the box and tapping Jeannot on the shin pads after a fight.
Yep.
This is as opposed to the end of last year where, boy, that was an unlikable team at the end. This is a likable team, or it's building its way into being a likable team. Guys clearly care, and
Yep.
all indications are they enjoy each other's company, and the toughness part, the willingness to stand up for each other, that goes a long way. And those Bruins teams in previous years, that's always been almost a given that they were built that way and that they felt that way about each other. Most years, not every year, but I've liked what I've seen so far this year in terms of the likability of the team. This is a team you can really root for, not because you want the Bruins to win necessarily, but just because they're fun to root for, and you like to see them succeed.
Yeah, and they play the right way. They like work hard. They're like they've got each other's backs. Like there's a lot of things that they do that if you're sort of a hockey purist, you appreciate because they're doing it the right way. They're doing it the way that you would expect somebody to teach it, or expect hockey players that like really respect the game. That's the way they play. And I think they do that for the most part. I really do. But it's it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But I thought at the beginning of the year, the one thing I was telling people when they asked me how the Bruins were going to be, and I did think that they were going to be around a playoff spot towards the end of the year. I didn't think they were going to be like a bottom feeder for sure. But I was saying to people, like, I know they're not going to be like run and gun offense, but I think this is going to be an entertaining team to watch. I think this is going to be likable players playing really hard, being a pain in the ass to play against for other teams, and playing the kind of style that Bruins fans appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be entertained by this team. And I think that's what we've seen so far. And I think that's a great call, Mark, that's a big part of what we've seen. And they're not going to give up on games. You're not going to see them punt on games on the road and just give in. They've fought back and they've clawed their way into these games. Even when they've lost and come up a bit short, you have to admire the way that they've fought to get back into the games. And almost every single game, except for that one game in Ottawa, that was a disaster. And I think is that I think that was one of those games you could see the fatigue on the ice when they were playing.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, though, they've shown you that last year's a distant memory, and there not going to be like that. And I think that's the bare minimum that Bruins fans wanted this year, and they've definitely gotten. All right, let's get through these really quick. Were you all surprised by Fabian Lysel's recent benching, and would he even sniff a call-up if not for the Bruins injury bug?
I'm not surprised by anything that's happening with him recently. I wasn't.
Do you feel? Let me ask you this, Mark. Do you feel like the benching was like a reaction by him, something he did that was because he was miffed about not getting called up, being one of the first call-ups? Do you think it had anything to do with that? Was it more just like the way he plays on the ice? Like, what do you think was behind like him not playing?
He plays. It's I wouldn't put that on him that he was sulking because he didn't get called up. I've seen nothing to indicate that. But it's just that here he is. He's in his fourth year in the American League, and the coaching staff has worked with him about details, and his details still are not where they need to be. He still turns the puck over. He still takes a bad penalty. He still his compete is better this year, but he needs to raise it, another couple of levels. I think the scratches and the benchings were one was he took a bad penalty, and the other was I think it was a turnover. Things that you accept and expect from a rookie or maybe a second year guy. But like I said, we're in year 4 here.
Yeah.
How many times, the same mistake over and over and over again. Everyone makes mistakes, but when there are things that have been focused on and harped on, and it still happens, well, what choice does a coach have? And all the time people are clamoring. Some people are clamoring. Just call them up and stick them in there and see what happens. Well, can you imagine what an FU that would be to the 20 other guys down here who are trying to get there? To have a guy, just have a job in the NHL handed to him, just because of where he was drafted or how fast he skates. You gotta, your game has to come together on, on every level in order to earn an NHL spot, to me, unless you're just so talented that you can't hold the guy back. But he's got a lot of talent, but he's not infallible. He's not, a guy who automatically should be plugged in there and given a chance. He's not. I think a lot of fans have a very skewed idea of what he actually is. They have an idea of what they think he could be, but what he is now, the two things don't mesh. So, I think that's, I don't expect him to play this weekend. He's got some injury that, he barely skated this week. So I don't expect to see him this weekend. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
Okay. That's plenty. I mean, but it's like, I'm sure it's frustrating for the organization that it's the same old stuff and mistakes that have been or habits that have been harped on that continue to creep in and are there. The fourth question is about Matt Poitras. We kind of talked about him earlier. The production hasn't been there. He's been snake bitten a little bit, but you really like his pace of play, which I think is significant. And I think that's a good thing. And that's like his continued development at a very young age. That's, exactly what we're starting to see there and saw last year and continue to see this year. So that's good. All right. Last question. Will you be taking in one of NU's final games at Matthews Arena, Mark?
I'm going to have to check the schedule. I went to one last, I think it was in March. I went to one there and I thought, okay, this will be my last time here because they're not playing here starting next year. But then, they didn't really have their plan down pat at that point. So they're ending up playing half the season there now. I'm going to have to look at the schedule, and it might be time for one last trip down memory lane over there. I went there in 1966. Okay. I really am an old guy. I had a cousin who played for Melrose High, and they had a powerhouse team in the mid '60s. And
was that Umili? Was he on that team?
Yes, he was. He was a teammate of Dick Umili. So yeah, I'm the guy that saw Dick Umili play high school hockey and is still around. I'm that guy. But
that random New England dude some random dude in New England that's seen Dick Umili play at high school.
But so I went there one Saturday afternoon. They were in the Eastern Mass tournament, which is, was a big deal then. It's a big deal now. It's, the MIAA now, but a Saturday afternoon playoff game at the Boston Arena, as it was called back then. What a dump.
Yep.
Oh my God. What a dump. But a fantastic place to watch a hockey game. And the history, the whole thing. Eddie Shore, Babe Ruth used to go there and skate around sometimes. I mean, you can't. There's no place like it. It's tremendous. Anyone who hasn't been there needs to get over there before the roof caves in or they shut it down. Whichever comes first. Before
it collapses on itself, which you definitely feel like the building's leaning a little bit when you're over there now these days. Yeah. I was there in October, so I did get to one of the final games. Finn and his teammates did an intermission skate, and we were there to watch the Army Northeastern game. So he got one last skate on the ice, on the Northeastern ice at Matthews Arena, and I was explaining to his teammates like the significance of that arena and like the Bruins banner that's up there that shows the years that they played there. And like I've heard all kinds of stories about the old like Saturday mornings and afternoons when it was like high school hockey all morning and afternoon, and the GBL teams all playing there and stuff like that, back in the old days. That it was an experience to be able to go there and see all that hockey going on.
The history of hockey in Boston and in Massachusetts and the culture that exists now started there. That's where it started.
Yep.
So,
yep.
It's kind of a shame that they're going to have to, tear it down and build a new one. But hey, that's we've had it for over 100 years, and we're probably lucky to have it that long. So farewell to
100%.
Matthews Arena.
Yes, Matthews Arena. You hopefully there'll be a nice plaque or some kind of statue or some kind of memorial. I'm sure there will be of the site where it is, and they're going to build a new place. But like obviously, with the structural stuff and the safety stuff going on, there was no way they were going to be able to like refurbish it, rehab it, and continue with the same building. So I was glad I got to see a bunch of games there. I was glad I was able to see my cousin play at Northeastern there. That I was able to get on the ice a few times. My kids both were on the ice doing intermission skates there. So, they all got to be a little part of Matthews Arena history. And I will say, having been to that Army Northeastern game, there are plenty of good seats available at Matthews Arena for these Northeastern games, these last few that they're going to be playing there. So if you've never been there, definitely do yourself a favor and go over there and catch one of these games before the building closes forever. So much history there, no question about it. I will warn you right now, though, they do not serve beers at Northeastern at Matthews Arena, so it's not like BC. Totally different experience going to Northeastern to see a hockey game. No adult beverages allowed, so you'll have to like suck that up and be okay with it. But Northeastern's actually got a pretty good team this year too, with a really good goalie that surprised some people along the way. So it should be fun to go out and check that out. It'll also be interesting to be able to watch Northeastern practice at Bach Arena in Dedham. I don't know how that one's going to work either. That's an interesting wrinkle to everything that they have going on. But that's a story for another day. Mark Divver, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else out there, thank you for listening. You have been listening to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Mark Divver, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
Everybody else out there, thank you for listening. We will see you at the rink.